What gives conscientious people energy? Doing a task thoroughly and well. They want the time and quiet necessary to focus on doing a perfect job. So constant interruptions, constant drop-ins, and being peppered with questions is a challenge for them. It's also a challenge to be in a very high stimulus environment for a long time and be expected to focus. So if there's music playing and there's people popping in and out and they're expected to do a good and thorough job, they don't love it. They would rather have an extended amount of silence so that they can concentrate and they can get something done really, really well. Another thing that gives the conscientious person energy is working with detail and data. And in fact, if they score very strong in that type, they would rather work with data all day if they could have their wishes, because data is predictable and they thrive on predictability and consistency. People, on the other hand, especially if they're managing people, can be a challenge to them because people are like a pinball machine. They feel this way, they feel that way, they're up and down, they're irrational and illogical. But data is always logical. It's orderly, it's precise, and they like that precision and they like that sense of order and structure. Another thing that gives the conscientious person energy is having a detailed plan. They love structure, they love organization, and they love knowing that things are thoroughly planned out. In fact, being starved for information is one of their biggest pet peeves. They just like to know what's going to happen next and what's going to happen next and what's going to happen next and how is it laid out on paper. They like that idea of having structure and order and precision. Another thing that gives energy to the conscientious person is just being accurate and ensuring high quality. They care very much about doing a high quality job. In fact, probably their biggest pet peeve is jobs done poorly, half done. But the biggest by far is jobs poorly and half done, and then it being blamed on them because they're the competent ones. They're the ones that don't get it wrong. So when a C says things like, well, we've tried that and it didn't work, they can appear like a wet blanket, but that's not the motivation. The motivation, is, let's measure twice and cut once. Now, sometimes with a conscientious person, it can be, well, let's measure 3 times. Or let's measure 4 times. Or you know what, let's just keep on measuring because you can always get a better measurement. But they like that precision. They like to get it right and they like to ensure high quality. Gives them energy. Here's some possible blind spots for the conscientious person. Being too picky. They're wired to see what's wrong before they see what's right. They spot deficiencies. I once interviewed a person who scored very strong in the conscientious type. And we sat down at a Starbucks and it had just opened up. And so I just asked him during our interview, so what have you noticed about this restaurant? Because he was in the food industry. And he said, well, funny you should ask. And he started to point out deficiencies. He said, well, there's a light out in the back. Someone should have changed that bulb. And they've cleaned generally, but I can see the corners are dirty. And someone took delivery of a box, but they've left it sticking out from behind the counter. They should put it away properly. And someone has spilled cream near the side of the stand there, and I can see that was done yesterday because it's dried on and on he went. He could just see what was wrong. It jumped out at him at first. Now, if I were to go in my role, I would look for, is it busy? Are there customers in line? Are the drinks being done right? Is there a good vibe in the place? But a conscientious person looks and they see what's wrong first because they're quality control people. They want to get it right and they want it to be to high standards. Another possible blind spot for a conscientious person is exerting inappropriate control over others, or let's say trying to exert inappropriate control over others. They may offer advice at times, asked for or not. Now, when anyone is under stress, their highest personality type goes even higher. So under stress, the dominant gets bossy. The dominant will do whatever it takes to get people across the finish line to meet a deadline. The inspiring person sometimes can get scattered or talks more. The supportive person under extreme stress can freeze. They're not sure what to do next. The conscientious person under stress becomes controlling. Now, sometimes they can look like a D, they can look like that dominant, but it comes from a different place. The dominant person wants to be the top dog. The conscientious person wants to control everything because they want to make sure that mistakes aren't made. So it all has to go through them. They have to have input on what everything looks like as it leaves the front door because they want to make sure it's perfect. So under extreme stress, they can get quite controlling, and it's something that they need to watch. The conscientious person can sometimes get bogged down in detail. They're wired to complete even small tasks to a level 10, although more important things may need to be done. So you may have a stack of work that is really important that needs to get out for that day, but leaving the spreadsheet when it's not perfect, even if it doesn't matter, kind of takes prominence. So when you know that, hey, I just need to get the perfect color of magenta on the banner of that spreadsheet before I can move on to anything else, that's what I'm talking about. Getting bogged down in that detail and getting sucked down a rabbit hole where you can't leave it till it's perfect, even though there's a ton of other stuff that's maybe way more important that needs to be done. A possible blind spot for conscientious people is holding themselves and others to very high standards. Conscientious people can exhaust themselves because they do things well and they insist, they demand from themselves that they perform at a high level. So I am married to a conscientious person, and my wife is an amazing person. We've been married 25 years, and whatever she does well. She's a gourmet cook. She decided to start working out, and so she's ultra fit. Her house is perfect and clean all the time. Whatever she does really well. And she can also exhaust herself because she insists on perfection from herself. I work with some conscientious clients, and often it looks like this. We get on the phone or we meet in person. They start talking and I listen for a while, and they are down on themselves. They beat themselves with a stick. And my job is to listen for a little bit, take the stick out of their hands and say, okay, you're being way too hard on yourself. Let's look objectively at what's going on in the organization. We're killing it in sales. We've got a strong culture. Things are working. But they can be very, very hard on themselves and hold themselves to high standards. And they may be constantly disappointed, not only in themselves, but in others too, because they think, if I did that job, it would be a level 10, but because I gave it to you, it's a 7, and I'm really disappointed. Why can't I trust anyone to do a good job? If you score very strong or strong in that conscientious type, does this ring a bell for you? Conscientious people and how to be effective with them. Do a thorough job the first time. If you do that, their respect for you will grow. Give them lots of information. They hate being starved for information. So if there are plans upcoming, let them know what they are. Let them know how it affects them. Now, sometimes they'll want more and more information, but they love it when you give it to them. Show respect for their rules. If they have rules that they've set up and you violate those rules, they take it personally. They take it as, you don't respect me. So if you're supposed to put your shoes away when you come in the front entrance and you don't bother doing it because you're in a hurry, they view that as lack of respect for them personally, not just that, oh, that person left their shoes on. So show respect for their rules. And dial back the emotion. They want to be level. They don't like up and down emotions. They like rational, logical interactions. Avoid asking them personal questions, especially when you first meet. And don't take what appears to be their detachment personally. Just respect their boundaries, respect their space, and let them warm up at their pace. Focus on the facts. They love facts. They don't want your stories, your wild testimonials. They want the data, please. And highlight your shared desire for accurate results and quality. And they'll want to work with you to achieve those accurate results and quality. It's what they care about most. Here's some examples of conscientious people you may have heard of. Mr. Spock. Is there anyone who is higher in that conscientious type than Mr. Spock? Just give me the data, please. And then McCoy, if you've seen the show, who is high in that I style. He's all about emotion and they get into it. Mr. Spock just looks at him with disdain. Please give me the data. Martha Stewart. Okay, Martha Stewart has her Halloween decorations ready in April. Need I say more? She's the ultra planned person. Bill Gates. A new Netflix documentary just came out on Bill Gates, and they say that the greatest strength that he had was wading into complexity and making sense of it. He's able to handle huge amounts of data, put it through his machine, his mind, and turn it into something useful. His greatest strength. And of course, my favorite, Mary Poppins. Well begun is half done. What you learned in this module. You learned what energizes the conscientious person. You learned possible blind spots of the conscientious person. And you learned how to be effective when you're dealing with the conscientious person.